We're spiritual beings just having a human experience. We're not humans stuck in a human experience. We're spiritual, absolutely infinite beings, and we think, oh, my day won't be complete unless I have this or that or the other, whether it's a person or food substance or addictions or whatever. But under it all is really a famous book title from Edgar Cayce's people, A Search for God. So it's really all a search for God. Now, what good would it do to search and not find? So when you hear Jesus saying things like, seek and you will find, he's not saying you might eventually. It's kind of like he's saying, seek and you will eventually get out of your own way and find that this was always there. You know, you were just in the way. So it's kind of nice. It's not a search for God. It's actually a remembrance. But the remembrance is a process. So it does involve kind of peeling layers. And today, I'm addressing this in the form of a concept that a lot of people deal with called Ascension. So just kind of a talk about Ascension a little bit. For some of you, it's like, yes, you know, the people with a lot of spiritual or New Age background, the concept or word of Ascension really will ring some bells. For others, it's going to be like, what is that? You know, it sounds kind of woo-woo, because it is, in a good way. So Ascension, people have assumed that ascension means you're going to be lifted up by ships. Light ships are going to come and get you and take you to higher dimensions. And that's partly true, actually. I also say to people, if they wanted you to, they'd come by now. You know, and if they're not here, you have to ascend while you're on Earth and not look for when they're going to take you away from, you know, terrible humans and let you live in higher dimensions. Because as soon as you think you need to be away from terrible humans, you're stuck. You're here. You know, and then you're going to have to just deal with that, you know, the incarnations of that. So this kind of all started with, I just had this amazing vision happen. And, you know, and I woke up in the wee hours going, wow, that was pretty incredible. But the short version of it is this. I was sort of shown these native elders of Earth. And I saw them being persecuted by spiritual people who were saying the native ways and their ways, these elders, it's old school. And so I was being given, in this vision, I was being given the task of explaining that they're the same God, Christ consciousness as anybody else. You just don't understand it. Old school or not, if it was that old, why haven't you gotten it yet? You still don't understand what they were telling you from hundreds of years ago. So don't call it old school. So I was given the sort of the position of stepping in to bridge and help people respect the old, what they thought was the old ways. Does that make sense? All right, so I was kind of bridging this conversation and helping the respect to be there, which felt really good. And it was very beautiful, very healing, very powerful. But after that, and this is important, because when you and I accomplish things, whether it's pushing through a test and initiation of life, or whether you're just being true to your spiritual path and doing meditations on time and regularly, when we do our work, whether it's the healing of the old or the bringing in the new, when we do our work, we are typically going to be rewarded in consciousness. Okay, rewarded in some form. That doesn't mean I'm saying do things so you can get reward. That's kind of fundamental religion's version of spirituality. You know, you do things and then you'll get rewards, like God's going, okay, fine, you know, and giving you a gift. It's not like that at all. When we do good, whether it's pushing through our stuff or accomplishing a task that was given to us in a good way, like a teaching, however it's coming to us, when we accomplish it, our consciousness is already raised. That's why it looks like God sent you new things. You actually raised to new things. You follow? That makes sense, right? So it's just really all consciousness raising. So when I finished this thing that was happening in this vision, then I started receiving downloads. And the download was partly related to ascension. And so it was like I was given the task, for lack of a better word, to explain a little bit more about what ascension is and isn't. And the simple part is what it isn't. It can include things like angelic visions. It can include things like light ships and, you know, ascended masters. That's all true. Some of us don't even know about it or believe in those things. That's all valid and true. But if that becomes your focus, I can't wait till they come to take me, you're already not ascended. Therefore, they're not coming to take you. You have to be in the consciousness of, to achieve that thing, to ascend, basically. So, we go through these tests, and I was shown also, and I've talked about Ascension before. I think we have it on a tape somewhere. But Ascension is not really so much about being taken somewhere. But the vision I was given, a real nice visual, is kind of like, picture a center of circles, multiple circles. And people are thinking that we all stand around in these circles of around the center of God. And we're all kind of placed here and there. Now, typical Ascension, the mistaken understanding is, down in the circles of life, all the people in the universe, some of them are going to be selected to ascend. That's the linear definition of ascension. Some of us are going, which is not unlike the fundamental Christian thing of some of us that are good enough Christians, and none of them are, and that's not a criticism of Christianity. No human can live up to being one of the 144,000 in all time. In all time, do you know how many souls have been on this planet? Let's just say 1 billion. Just only 1 billion, let's say. Out of that 1 billion, you're hoping that you're one of 144,000. It ain't going to happen. Your odds are really bad. Go to Vegas and bet on something there, because those odds are even better, and those are bad odds. Those odds are even better than an ascension out of, I'm going to be 1 in 1 billion. That's not how God works. So it's not you're selected, you're selected, you're selected. What happens is, ascension is an actual process. So picture these rings that have a pulsation to them. God's love is constantly calling us to the center of God, because we think we're not in the center of God. So it's not actually individuals being selected going up vertically. It's people being brought into the center, which is the center of all. So you and I can be anywhere in those circles. It's not just for one group, like there's one group in one circle that the whole circle gets to go and no other circles. This is actually just waves within waves and so on. So wherever you are in life, when you decide to live an ascension type of consciousness, what happens is the breath of God, the wave comes out to search for who's up in that consciousness, and it grabs those who are in that consciousness, and it draws them in towards the center of God. See, it's not a linear thing. You're gone, you're not gone. It's a wave. But you could be way out here, and the wave can catch you, in a good way, catch you, and then draw you in. But it'll draw you in only as far as you're ready to go in consciousness. Technically, we could all go in completely, all at the same time, boom, in the center of God, and we're one again. But what happens in this infinitely patient breathing of God, the wave comes out kind of like, I love you, come home. Some of us catch the wave, some of us don't. Some of us, it's all typically unconscious, Somebody might think they're sitting at their couch, their feet propped up, having another smoke, another drink, and kind of watching a ball game. And all of a sudden they get a feeling. I wonder if I should switch channels and watch an inspirational talk. Then a play happens on the TV and they get distracted, they put it off. That was a wave coming out to call them, and they said no. So, you're going to be drawn in as far as you are prepared, but you also are part of the outgoing, meaning there's also parts of us that aren't quite ready. So we're drawn in for a moment. This is what's amazing. When we are drawn in on a good day, when you have a good moment, when you're really tenacious about your spirituality, I don't mean obsessive, just tenacious. When you're drawn in because you just got high on love today, peace, prosperity today, you're drawn in, a part of you is permanently attached there. A part of your consciousness is grabbed when you get to the high. It's kind of like if you're up high and I'm trying to jump up, a child's trying to jump up and grab your hand so they don't fall. They're on a ledge and you reach down for them. They jump up, you grab them, and you won't want to let them go. Right? When you raise consciousness, spirit grabs you, and that becomes your new higher consciousness. Then the rest of you falls. So when the child jumps up and you grab their hand so they don't fall, notice how at first they're reaching for you, you grabbed them, but the weight of their body still ends up settling down, right? Downwards, gravity. That's this world. My higher self is achieved by my day-to-day decisions of being a better person, being a good person. And that the concept of ascension is constantly working to draw us in. So when you make good decisions and when you raise consciousness and when you read things that feed your soul and so on, you're leaping upwards, and every time you do, a part of you is permanently attached there so that you don't fall all the way down, not all of you. But then there's the dense part. And I hope this visual is making sense because this is how I saw it. And this is important because this is those days you start a day and you do a little Course in Miracles workbook lesson. You start the day with a Om Mani Padme Hum and a chanting and everything's just peachy. And wow, I feel so great, and I'm only going to eat organic breakfast this morning, and I'm just going to breathe, and I'm going to go to the Red Rocks, and everything's just righteous, man. It's really cool. And then something happens. And it could be somebody you didn't want to connect with, tempting you towards addiction from the past. It could be somebody calling that tends to stir you into arguments that you didn't want to have. These kinds of things. And in that moment, you will now fall. But you can only fall as far as you are dense. A person hanging for dear life from the hand of another, the ability for that person's density to drop at 300 pounds is different than at 50 pounds. So my density is going to drop differently based on how dense I am. And what humans do, first of all, is blame other people for their density. And your density, by density, I'm talking about where you are susceptible to giving in to things that aren't healthy for you. But we'll blame other people. But that's just one problem. Again, the other problem is our self-condemnation. So we're like, hanging there talking about the fact that we're hanging there. And that the metaphor of that would be, you're hanging there going, I can't believe I succumbed to that argument again. I can't believe that this person tempted me towards addiction. I can't believe this person talked me into getting back in this relationship. I thought for sure after the police report that was done. I was done for sure, and the judge in the courtroom said, run for your life. I thought for sure I was done, and here I am back in this relationship. That's the part of us that's dense, just hanging there. And I'm saying that the self-condemnation from that is only making it worse. It's okay for you to be hanging there going, wow, I can't believe I'm here again. Wow. It's okay to own it. You have to own it. And then just kind of say, what is it about this in me, not in them, in me, that tempted me to go this direction? Why did I give in? See it, and then own it, and then choose again. I'm committed that I wouldn't do this again. Now, if you do it again anyway, the density is going to get the best of you. But no matter what, when you've had high moments, it can never change. This is partly what Jesus meant when he said, when two are gathered, nothing can rent them apart. You remember that? When two are joined in God, nothing can rent them apart. So when you reach up, when you leap up and you grab a new higher consciousness today, from a meditation, a prayer, forgiveness, you leap up and you grab, that can never be torn apart. There's a part of you that is now permanently higher. But most people won't be able to continue thinking of how high they are when the rest of them is dangling down in the density of life. These weird imageries I get. But, that's how it works. And so you're going to judge yourself. I shouldn't have fallen. I shouldn't have done this and that. You're forgetting. Your good work took you higher, and it's permanent. Now, if you want to stay higher, then you got to work on the density so that there's not so much pulling you downward. You still have the high, but if you're concerned about the lows, work on the lows. Work on the things that do pull you down, that do tempt you. Patterns of relationships, unhealed wounds, whatever they happen to be. In other words, lighten up. If you're just going to obsess on the density, lighten up. So the universe is constantly encouraging us. Can you please focus on the achievements? Well, I would, if only it weren't for them causing me to have a non-achievement. And instead, focus. Now, the thing is, when I say focus on the positives, I'm not one of those teachers to tell you to ignore hurts and wounds and pretend they're not there. But I'm saying, what you're going to focus on needs to be, I got higher today. I made it to a new level of consciousness. That prayer and meditation, I must not say, I lost that when I got in an argument. I lost that peace I had this morning when I got that bill in the mail. Your job is to say, okay, how do I apply the high in this low? They're not separate. Bring the lows to the light. How can I not excuse myself or pretend it's not there? How do I, because the chances are, if you achieved a high, the chances are there's a connection with the soon coming low. The soon coming low is the ego's way of saying, I will not have this. How dare you grow in consciousness? But it can't stop you from growing in consciousness. What it can do is make you think about something else. The monkey mind you hear about in Buddhism. So it pulls you. Now the problem is, if you get pulled and start believing in the thing that represented density, you will now lose sight of the high you were on. You'll lose sight of the spiritual high. You still have it. I'm telling you, it is permanent. Every time the wave took me in, that will never change. Oh, thank God, because here it comes, and I'm out again, tide. But the next time that comes in, it's like the incoming tide, and the incoming tide of God is real, and it's permanent. It's not one that will cycle out and no longer be a high tide until another day. When this tide is coming in, it's up, and only the ego goes back. Your highs are permanent. They're locked in. You know, I think about this like, imagine you went to a store today. It could be one of those where people hear about going shopping for Christmas gifts, Imagine you're going to a store today, and then you happen to be like the first one there. Great. And there's something you really, 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 really badly want. And they don't have a lot of them, but you're first in line. Dude, you are set. The thing you're excited about, it's yours. I mean, you're standing at the door. Great. 1 minute left, 10 seconds left. I'm ready to go get my thing. And then the door opens and somebody falls and gets hurt. Now, this is how you ascend and not ascend. Somebody falls and gets hurt, you ignore them and go get your thing. That's not ascension. Or you can say, well, I'm not like that. When the door opens, they've fallen, I'm going to send them a prayer while I run to get my thing. That's Sedona. That's a lot of Sedona people. Well, I sent them prayers, so that's good. No, that's not ascension. The third option, okay, now the person falls. I want to go get my thing, but I can't because somebody had fallen. All right, and you go and help the person. I think it's great that you're helping them, but if you do it resenting that you missed out the thing, you're still not ascending. Ascension would mean, okay, the door's opened. I'm going to wait, somebody has fallen. There is no other option. You're not thinking regret. There's none, zero, zilch, the big O, it's zero. There's no other option. I need to do what's right. When we do this, we're ascending in consciousness. No, I know that this version of the story, a store and somebody fallen, doesn't sound cool, like light ships and magnificent visions of circles of light beings, and I get all that. You're never going to be in those light ships nor in a circle of beings of light if you don't understand this test. The person has fallen, there's no other option. How can I be helpful today? You're going to be tempted to go, God, I missed out on that thing. But that's a test. That's the density trying to drop you. When you've jumped and you helped somebody, you jumped and somebody grabbed your hand. That's the Spirit of God holding you. But then you're focusing on the density. Yeah, I know you're holding me, but look at the gift I didn't get, that thing I wanted. And that's what miracles are about. To understand, this was the best choice, and it was the only choice. The one deciding, to be helpful. Not focusing on what you didn't get. But to understand that higher consciousness, ascension consciousness, and miracle consciousness are the same. So you'll find that you did this thing, something's going to happen to help you receive what you really, really needed rather than what you thought you wanted. So the rewards come in consciousness, which means that even when I receive the rewards, even if they're of the dense world, it could be a three-dimensional object, we will not be evaluating it just on the object, but by the spirit of consciousness with which we received and created receiving that consciousness, that thing. Does that make sense? So all of a sudden we realize you are allowed to be prosperous, but the ego has taught us you're either spiritual or you're not. You choose the spiritual. You know the path of spiritual. You have vows of poverty, vows of chastity. That's why they call them nuns. You have none of anything. You're not allowed. You're not allowed to have anything fun. Just solemn face, no joy, no fun. And that's not a diss. It really isn't. It's a sad reality that people were taught in religions, but even in mysticism. The great stuff is of this world, and I'm not of this world. I'm spiritual. You can tell how miserable I look. That was another one of the infamous lies on this planet. Instead, we're realizing, like an example, I announced recently, and in fact, it's even more so than I thought. I announced recently, I've been touring for forever and a day. And typically tours were 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks at a time, and then a week at home. And when I moved here, we cut it to 1 tour a month. But then I thought I'm going to cut it back a little bit more, maybe once every other month or so. And as soon as you receive guidance on things, a lot of times you're not just receiving guidance of what you will do, but it's already done. But you're thinking it's little measures so that it's acceptable to you. You're thinking your guidance is just this, when it's really this. But you're only able to hear so much at a time because it's too intimidating to hear more. So even then, Spirit was sort of saying, you'll not be touring anymore. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to cut it back to once a month. That was reasonable. Then I'm going to cut it back to, maybe once every other month. I might even cut it back to once every quarter. And that was only recent insights. But there was an interesting thing, and that was I realized all of a sudden, I went, no, I think I'm only going to tour like twice a year. So today, this starts the first week, because I'm supposed to be on tour next week. And I canceled it. And this will be the first time in my life that I've ever been not on tour, and it's going to be for like 6 months that I'm going to be here. Well, yeah. So that's phenomenal. But, and I say this not about me, this is all of us in our lives, because a part of me felt a conscientiousness. But there are people, wanting me to be on tour. There are people asking, I can be helpful, I need to be helpful. All that's the human self. It's sounding spiritual and well-intended, that's fine. But that's part of me was going, is this right? And so on. And I needed to hear the guidance saying, from God, you deserve it. And then be able to go, really? And watch myself go, really? Something as simple. But this is a huge thing because it's all I've ever done. So when you think that an ending of a relationship might be a tedious thing you have to work through, Spirit's already saying it's already done. All you need to do is accept that you deserve it. You deserve prosperity, because if I cancel touring, that's a huge portion of my income that's gone. It's the largest income I have is touring. That's why I kept, I've always done it. It's my life. It's my income. So, but I love the people and all that. And so I love the touring. So, helping people and all that. But this was a major change. But on a human level, the financial still comes in. What are you going to do? And I still just adjusted. When you and I adjust, whether it's romantically, financially, or even in health, when we adjust to new realities, the world will adjust to us. You think, I can't afford to. If I let this relationship go, they're abusive as heck, physically, emotionally, mentally, but at least I have a relationship. And Spirit saying, that is not a relationship. There's no relating. There's no relating. A relationship means you're in this boat, ship. You're in a relationship. You're in this boat together. So if one's setting sail and another one's dropping an anchor, it doesn't make any sense. So I call that relationship instead of relationship. Sorry about that, but hey. So how can I be truly helpful? Means I can afford to be helpful. When the person falls, that's what I need to do. Now, if you do those things sacrificially, regretting and bemoaning that you didn't get the thing you wanted, you're still not getting it. Yes, you look so service-oriented. Oh, I was here to get a gift, I needed bandages because of all of my bleeding, and I was hoping to not bleed to death tonight when I'm sleeping, but there that goes, and because I had to help a person, making some huge story, you're not there yet. Ascension is not just a woo-woo kind of concept. It's a daily decision we make. Think and act. Zarathustra said, Jesus said, Buddha said, good thoughts, good words, good deeds. They all said that same thing. Why? Because everything about you needs to be an expression of goodness. If it's an expression of goodness, yet you're bemoaning that you lost something while trying to be good, you're not really there. And ascension is the good thoughts, good words, good deeds. I can't imagine anything else, is what we're learning to say. You're still going to be tempted. Oh, but when that happens, remember, that's a test. You did good, and something's saying, yeah, but. You could have, should have. Be careful. That's the density trying to pull your attention towards your feet falling, rather than the fact that your hand is in the hand of God. I did good, and I see the temptation. Just like with me with touring, and I see the funds, but what am I going to do? And it's like, I don't know, whatever. It'll all be fine. But I wasn't being careless when I did that, when I said that. I truly felt it's going to work. So if you hear me talking about this and go, Michael said you should leap and Spirit will take care of you. It's not what I said. I'm saying if that's your consciousness, if you're not of the consciousness that you're going to be taken care of, don't be leaping anywhere. Be careful. Not because you're bad, not because you're flawed, not because you're too dense, but if that voice is strong in you that you're doubting, please be careful, because it's wanting to win the argument. And if you try to make a move to change your life and the voice is too big inside, it's going to hope that you're going to fail, and you probably will because it's so loud. And when you fail, it's going to tell you, see, don't ever trust the goodness again. So you have to be careful. Instead, don't leap today, grow more faith. Have more people around you supporting your faith in Spirit, in God, in the rules, the laws of the universe. That as I change, don't think, that if you build it, he will come. It's a great line, from Field of Dreams. And there's lots of people that have built lots of things and jumped out and they didn't get caught. They just don't write books about it, so you've never read them. You've never said, when I think about it, 90% of these things fail. You only hear about the positive thinking that works. All of it really works, but the doubts make them all fail, or the vast majority. It has to be in your consciousness for things to happen, for things to come to be. It can't just be, my teacher told me to recite this line and it's all going to work out. It's, and do I believe? Ask and believe. People keep quoting, ask and ye shall receive. That's not what it says. Ask and believe and you shall receive. You can edit it down and then just edit it even more. Get stuff. Don't even ask. Just expect stuff. Get stuff. Be entitled. Yeah, wonderful. Ask and believe. But believe doesn't mean I'm hoping. Believe means I actually know. This is spiritual law. That whatever my beliefs are, ask and believe, and you will receive. But the truth is, you will receive exactly as you have believed, not as you have asked. The asking is easy. Believing is the trick. So you can ask for all kinds of cool things, but your beliefs will sabotage even the best things. So belief is what is going to manifest. That's why ask what you pray for. It's really ask what you believe in. Or, be careful of what you ask for. Be careful what you pray for. Is really be careful what you believe. Because your beliefs are the things that are going to most often manifest. The more dominant beliefs. And sometimes we blame why I'm not receiving the thing I thought I was going to get. And it's not that at all. It's that I have beliefs. Maybe they were unconscious. Sometimes they're called, the garbage bin for some people in the consciousness. Unhealed wounds. But those things will have their say-so. Just because you decide to, go find a quote, ask and ye shall, doesn't mean the ego says, oh, dang, now I'm going to have to retire. A Course in Miracles says your ego goes only from being suspicious to being vicious. It's always suspecting that you're up to something in terms of your better health, developing a better life. It's always suspicious, always watching you to make sure you don't grow. But when you do start growing, it turns into vicious, and it'll do things to undermine. That's where that whole concept in the Bible and in religions came from about the devil trying to undermine you. All that did is personify it, but it also made it someone else's fault. When you say it's the ego, as you would more in Buddhism, for example, you're saying this is my weakness. These are my, lack of belief in myself. If belief is what manifests, I just need to increase and improve upon my beliefs about who I am. That's all it is. Don't increase the volume of how you ask God for things. Don't increase the number of times per day, which is one of the reasons Jesus said don't pray repetitiously. His point was with no consciousness to it, no intention, no heart. You just stand around going, and I want more stuff, and I want more stuff, and I want more stuff, and I want more stuff. And that you call a mantra because you're repeating it over and over. You can hold beads, I want more stuff, I want more stuff, I want more stuff. It doesn't change anything, but it's the belief. As soon as I recognize I really do matter in spirit, I really do have value in spirit. When I get that, already all of the kingdom of God, all the angels come swooping in, which is hard for the human mind to comprehend it because you think they can only be in one place at one time. All of the angels, everything comes swooping in to say, how can we help you? When you say, I'm ready to know who I am, and therefore to receive the new level of who I am. Because my outer life is going to match the consciousness of my beliefs. Yesterday I believed I was flawed, I was undeserving, I was naughty, bad karma, whatever. Today I breathe that out and I'm breathing in a new reality. And it's wonderful to ask the Mother, Divine Mother, Mother, who am I? Well, sweetheart, you are my beloved child in whom I am well pleased. It was the Divine Mother that said that when you hear Jesus was, after his 40 days, 40 nights and so on, and a vision happens and the Holy Spirit descends upon him. You hear this story of, and there was a voice from heaven that said, this is my beloved child in whom I am well pleased. That was the Divine Mother. But it wasn't for Jesus. It was for every one of us. You are my beloved child in whom I am well pleased. Well, you meant that for Jesus because he was pretty cool. You know where I've been. I'm not one of those beloved child. No. You are, and you are only my beloved child in whom I am well pleased. I'm not talking about you that did all these other crazy things and that was hurtful or hurt all the time. I'm not talking about the human you that is limited and dies, the human body. I'm talking about who you really are. So if you can step into who you really are and ascend in consciousness, you're going to see a whole different world. You won't notice, you won't experience the same things. People won't attack you as much. You won't have as many bills to pay that you can't pay, seemingly. All of a sudden, things start being taken care of. Your relations, I mentioned, going to that event recently, which the people watching online, it'll make more sense when you see this video on it. But when I went to that event, what impresses me are the people that are there were people there, guys, that were just absolutely high in happiness. It was just extraordinary. Some are of the business oriented and whatever. But man, the happiness level in these people, it was just the craziest thing. They not even knowing who I am. And they would ask, who are you? Several of them picked up on something. Who are you? What do you do? I don't say, I am a spiritual leader in Sedona, Arizona, I try to steer away from advertising like that. I just go, I'm a counselor. Or I say something a little mainstream so that their minds can wrap around it. But I can tell because artists, and this was a room of artists of sorts, artists are sensitive. So even though they seem mundane, say Hollywoodish and mundane, they're sensitive. And so I found myself going, they're all sensing something about this guy. I was at a party once and Oliver Stone walked by and he went, I'm going to keep my eye on you. That's what he said. He goes, you got something going on, don't you? And I'm like, it was, kind of strange. And it wasn't a negative because later on in that party, he lost track of where his son was. So he said, hey, have you seen my son? Can you help me find my son? So I'm helping him find his son for some reason. And that's the thing. How can I be helpful? When I went to this event last week, I told the people running the event, if you need anything, let me know. You need somebody moving chairs, they're like, you're not here to work. You go and enjoy. That's who I am. And there was this moment where you hear this large, loud crash. It's a big banquet, right? So it's hundreds and hundreds of people. And there's this big crash right near where I'm sitting, and all these, this is like gourmet meals. It was almost $1,000 per plate for people that were there buying their meal. So this food went everywhere. I turned around and I'm, just start helping, and pick stuff up. But I heard one of the staff calling the banquet captain and kind of getting, that person they spilled, because it's like, you're not allowed at major events like this to make a mistake. And they're like, we need to get rid of him. You can't be doing things like that. I said, wait. Called the captain over. I said, wait, come here. You'll notice if you look, the light is out on the step and you can't see the steps. So go and talk to the hotel about fixing the light that burned out, not the person who fell. You see, even there, I'm mediating conversations because it's the right thing to do. I didn't say, well, hoity-toity, How can I be helpful? So watch in your day-to-day life. There's a few ways that you can say, I'm gonna increase my odds of ascension. I'm gonna increase my process of ascension. There's a few things to do and a few things not to do. And if you know anything about my teaching, you're gonna know. The first thing to do is improve your connection to God. Just have some form of prayer and meditation. Increase your connectedness to God. How could that not increase your experience of ascension? Because as I pray and meditate, I am ascending. And every time I have a prayer meditation, part of me raised to a new level and gets pinned right there so that it can never drop lower. Is that part really clear? Every time I rise in consciousness, it gets pinned permanently. The only time it changes is when I go even higher and I pin a new self. That's how you grow in consciousness. But it's by being. It's not by just the book you read. It's not just by wearing a particular color. Those things are all fine to do. But if you're not different in consciousness, you're just a jerk who wears purple. It doesn't do any good. You got to be a better person. Be the purple. Anyway, yes, the second item I would say for growing in ascension consciousness, just study the highest things you can. Study with the highest teachers and the highest books. Get the highest materials possible. If you read a book and go, don't read it again. If it's just so-so, don't judge it, don't hate it, don't gossip about it. Just create something better. Go to a class, a workshop, a healer. Go for the highest you can in all things. Because that in itself says, I'm committed to higher ascended consciousness. And the universe hears that and will support that. And lastly, I'll say maybe three things for now. Lastly, be that thing. Be an example of love. Be an example of compassion. You're going to slip and have bad days, yes. Love, compassion, forgiveness. Be that example to other people. I went to this event, people not knowing who I am. Some did, but people not knowing who I am, what was great is they wonder, why are you helping? Who are you? And that's how we should leave every store. People stumped. That's how you should leave every room. People scratching their head in a good way, not like, what the heck was that? But rather, wow, a little bit of that was amazing. Their energy, their light. That's how we should leave every room. Better than when we walked in. I don't think you have to do it blatantly. I don't think you have to do it like with special, this is my business card, miracle worker, Michael Mirdad. I don't think you need to be that like external about it. But being that presence, even if it's slipping under the radar, being that presence for people. The ways that you would imagine not ascending, it's simply the opposite, living a life of judgment and harshness, being cruel, not being real and consistent with your work. So think about that. How am I doing in my ascension process? Am I connecting with those things I'm naming in a positive light? But on the downside, if you live a shallow, hurtful life, kind of shallow, hurtful, addictive, that's not ascending. It's your density dangling. Is it bad? No, it's just heavy, isn't it? That's all you have to call it. It's just, this is just heavy. Dealing with this addiction, dealing with my doubts, dealing with my unhealed wounds. It's really just heavy. And I'm really tired. See, the metaphor of hanging on just by one arm. I'm tired. You should be tired. You have a lot of density hanging, weighing on you, literally and figuratively, and you're aware of what it feels like to be the other. So why don't we let go of some of the density? Secondly, just showing extreme signs like of selfishness. Remember what I was using the analogy about the store. If you show a lot of selfishness, you talk about yourself too much, and every conversation's about you, like narcissistic you could call it, but I mean just selfish, even in your fears. Do you know that when your children say, Mom, can we get a such and such, and you say we can't afford it? Do you understand that's actually a selfish statement? Because you're affirming for them as well as yourself. I'm saying we can't afford it, therefore it's now your reality. What you can say is, you probably can have that. Mom's a little messed up, so let me go do some work on my belief that we can't afford it. Just let you fall. Don't take them down with you. Anytime you bring people down with you, it's selfish. When you make people feel like they can't heal, it's actually a selfish act. When you make people feel like there's no hope for their life, oh, I went through that too, yeah, and there's nothing you can really do. It's all selfish. Self meaning self-centered in a negative sense. I don't believe it, so I don't want you to believe it. It's better to say, I've struggled with that belief myself, but I know and I've heard of people accomplishing that. If you even need to say anything about yourself, just own that you've had your own bouts or struggles with that particular thing. And like I said, just not being real, not being a consistent example to other people. That's a good way to not ascend. Not being real. So here I am. Let me be the best I can. Doing spiritual teaching like I've done. And I use examples because I'm a teacher. I bring up examples in my life. But when I go and teach, it doesn't compute for me to do as I say and not as I do. So that's why I'm fairly relaxed when it comes to making judgments on people and their decisions. For you, drinking too much may be bad, let's call it, for you, and you're in recovery. I'm not going to condemn you for it, because there's got to be something I've done that you might not like, and I don't need to be judged for it, so I'm not going to judge you for it. We're all in this together. However, while I'm on a stage and while I'm talking to people year after year after year after year, I have more and more fine-tuned my character. Not to look one way and be another, that's dangerous. But also not to look one way and then do my best to just behave consistent with the way that I look. Because that's also an incongruence and a conflict inside. Like I use the example of the person who helps somebody who's fallen, but they're internally conflicted about wanting to get that thing. Being around people for as many years as I have has taught me to become that thing that I talk about. It may not be 100% to you in your opinion or you in your opinion, but all I know is I do my best to stay at that level. I'll slip, but what do I do when I slip? Exactly what I tell you to do when you slip. See, and that's the consistency we're looking for. Be a good example to people. Be helpful. Be present. Be consistent. That's ascension. This is ascension from a practical viewpoint. Not just and if you do this, the ships are going to sense that you're now, drinking organic orange juice, and so they're going to come looking for you. It gets so out there sometimes. I remember all the way back, like to the 90s, meeting some guy who says, hey, have you heard of, and I won't name what it is, but have you heard of such and such? Yeah, a little bit. Oh yeah, if you take a little pinch of this and rub it on your third eye, you're ascending within a couple of years. You just do it regularly. And they got people going, whoa, I do feel something. Okay. So every little thing, I can slap you in the head and you're going to feel something. Does that mean you're ascending? So, and even if it is, I took something, went, and it opened my third eye. By doing it synthetically instead of being the consciousness of the open third eye, there will still likely be a negative repercussion. You can't, what are you going to do? Jaws of life into your third eye and force your third eye open and say, look at me, I'm enlightened? No, you would probably need a surgeon right away. You're not going to, there's no beings going, well, you're so sincere and so dedicated to opening your third eye that you stuck jaws of life in there from a firehouse, and opened your third eye. They're not going to like that. They're going to say, dude, you got problems. We don't want you up here, So The dedication is in here. The mystics have always said, if you want to ascend, love and service are the two words most of the schools have taught over the years. Love and service. You know, everybody else is talking about this thing they took and the Kundalini rose. They're talking about this energetic exercise, and you spin to your left, spin to your right, except on Tuesdays. Do it the other way. And be sure to cross your eyes when you're doing it. You know, and if you get dizzy, drink more water, but organic water. And only water that came from a certain well somewhere from the planet. But then you're going to ascend. No, I'm already not interested in ascending. You've confused me so much. Instead, it's not about all the cool things and techniques. Be the ascension. It's called inscension. Inscend, not ascend. Inscend. Go and have a relationship with God and yourself. Bring that relationship, that improved relationship, to others. Because at the end of the day, and the conversation where I started about this vision with the native elders, these people saying they're not of the new way, they're not of this certain level of consciousness. Yes, they are. And as soon as you bridge with them, you cannot enter heaven or home alone. You have to be all one. Same spelling as alone. You have to be all one. So by bridging with and becoming one with these native elders, I'm ascending. By bridging with even the most horrific human beings and saying, there is a part of you made in God's image, and that part I love, come home with me. You enter the ark of peace, A Course in Miracles says, 2 by 2, just like the animals. You enter heaven with people in your arms that you walk in together. If you try to storm heaven and have, no witnesses to your goodness, you're in trouble. Hi, listen. I'm here to enter heaven. I know that you don't see any people around me because they're all nuts. And I'm a good person. And if they tell you anything about me, don't believe them. That's not how you enter. You have to have people saying, not only are we walking in with you, we're going to throw you up on our shoulders and march you in like a victory dance. That's how it needs to look. The lives you've changed is and are your ascension process. That's how practical and real this has to be. Please take a few centering breaths. Setting aside all stuff of the world again. Entering that place, that space of peace. Dedicating to staying in this space for a moment. Ascension. 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 It means to rise in consciousness until I'm in the center of God again. But it also means each movement in that direction. Let's take a moment to reflect into our lives, just over the last week or month, to any time that we had an opportunity to ascend in that moment and didn't take it. It means when somebody pushed you on a conversation that didn't go well. It means when you got a bill and you panicked that you couldn't pay it. You didn't have enough health or vitality or whatever. Those are all seemingly failed moments of ascension. The good news is, before those temptations arose, you probably already had a moment of high, and it came in to undermine it. So do we want those things to take us down? No. Nothing can take me down when I've risen. So I give thanks for whatever brought this up, the high. But I can see where I didn't live it. I didn't apply my high in that test. So, take a moment, look at the time you didn't accomplish it, and heal it. You have the power. We're the only ones who have the power to do it. By saying, I recognize there was this opportunity. And I accept that along with this opportunity, I tripped. I fell. And it's not the first time in my life that something like this tripped me up. When someone made me feel powerless, when someone gave me bad news, when something made me think I couldn't accomplish something, whatever it is, see it not as a one-time event, but own that there's a bigger pattern behind it. And that pattern is one of the primary masks of my ego. So I need to stop feeding that mask ego by giving into it. I have the power to say no. So I get this now, I get it, and I own it, and I surrender it to you, God. I surrender it to you effortlessly as possible. I give this to you. I empty my grail, my cup, and I ask for the perfect peace of God instead. A perfect feeling of oneness, wholeness, strength, tenacity, and so on. Prosperity, and so on. Joy. And as I absorb this in and give thanks for it, I shift gears into any recent time where I in fact passed my test, where I leapt up, I grabbed something in new higher consciousness, I passed through beautifully in what would have been an argument, but I passed, or just had a great epiphany when I was sleeping. Anything that represents an accomplishment of higher consciousness. A raise at work is not just a raise at work, it was a symbol of greater prosperity, which is a symbol of your rising in consciousness. Whatever it is, have at least one come into your mind. Own that it represents your consciousness. I did ascend in that moment. It's a fact. I ascended. Wow. I thought it was just a little accomplishment. No. I ascended to a new level that moment. Now you can never lose having ascended, but you can lose focus on it. And the way to not lose focus, lastly, is now take what you accomplished, give yourself some credit, breathe it in, feel excitement, enthusiasm, exuberance, gratitude, and then picture how you can take that growth that you accomplished and share it with anyone else. Or maybe you already did. But picture it anyway. Picture how that new finance can be helpful to others. Picture how that new friendship could be helpful. Picture how that epiphany helped. I just did a talk on an epiphany I had. That was sharing it. How can you share your epiphanies, your moments of growth? Your recognition that it's valueless to resent and fight in an argument with people. You got an epiphany on that? How can you bring that to people? You don't have to preach it. Own it. Smile and show other people, if ever it comes up as a topic, how they can achieve that in their relationships. Be the example of all the good things you'd like to see in the world. Take a moment with that. And close that with just slow breaths, bringing closure to that and a sense of gratitude. Relax and open your eyes. Thank you.